The Cliff of the Elves in Bali, Indonesia, a popular destination for tourists worldwide, recently hit the headlines. The Bali government has announced a pause on the construction of a glass elevator at this scenic site, which is perched on a cliff 182 meters high. The $12 million project is being carried out by China Kaishu Group, a Chinese real estate company. However, after construction footage was released, it sparked strong backlash from both locals and visitors. Environmental concerns aside, people are criticizing the elevator for its unsightly presence at such a beautiful location. According to the BBC, the cliff known as T-Rex Cliff is famous for its stunning shape, but during the initial construction of the elevator, the massive elevator shaft cut through the cliffside, damaging the natural view. This footage quickly went viral on social media, with many people criticizing it for severely damaging the natural landscape and accelerating erosion. Niluh Djelantik, a member of the Indonesian Senate from Bali, has consistently opposed the project. She said, "Even if you give me $100 million, I would never ride that elevator." The Elf Beach is beautiful as it is. For some people, appreciating its beauty means putting in the effort, walking to the base of the hill to enjoy the view. Beautiful sights must be experienced with the heart, not just by building an elevator. She expressed her opposition again on social media, saying that local dissatisfaction with the project had been brewing even before the elevator was completed. She added that the harsh sea conditions would make the project a gateway to disaster. Mara Sarayana, a local resident, told the Bali Sun, "It's such a shame that the beautiful view of Elf Beach is being ruined by this elevator project. Tourists come to Nusa Penida to enjoy the magnificent views, not to take an elevator." Other social media users also criticized the project. One person commented, "This is so foolish. Tourists come to Bali to escape the concrete jungle of the city, but now you want to build an elevator on the edge of a cliff? It's totally against what Bali stands for." Elf Cliff, under the sunlight, presents a picturesque natural landscape, with lush greenery at the top, contrasting sharply with the white sandy beach and deep blue waves below. Currently, it takes about 40 to 60 minutes to walk from the cliff top to the beach, and the return trip uphill can take up to 2 hours. Some are also concerned that if the elevator opens, it would make it easier for tourists to reach the beach, potentially increasing the risks of accidents in the water. Although Clinking Beach is famous for its spectacular views, the narrow coastline and strong waves have led authorities to prohibit swimming. However, many still ignore the warnings, resulting in frequent incidents of injury and death. According to Kaishu Group's plans, the glass elevator was set to be complete in 2024. It was to feature an aerial cafe and restaurant, as well as a glass observation deck. Tickets are expected to cost about 100 yuan or $14. During the groundbreaking ceremony in 2023, the company stated that the project would support the development of Bali and Indonesia's tourism industry through the Belt and Road Initiative. Some local residents are calling on the authorities to focus on repairing the ancient staircase that connects the cliff to the beach, instead of pursuing these so-called image projects. When the elevator tower was gradually completed in September, the provincial government was shocked to discover that the project had not obtained the necessary permits. Bali's governor, Wayan Koster, took a firm stance, stating that an investigation into the Kaishu project has been launched, and warning that if violations are found, the project will be suspended. The provincial government's investigation ultimately confirmed the violations, including the failure to submit the required documents. Authorities have now ordered the police to cordon off the site and halt construction. In recent years, Chinese companies have rapidly expanded their investments in Indonesia, with landmark projects like Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail, nickel smelting plants, and photovoltaic power stations. However, authorities are concerned that Chinese dominance in key industries may undermine Indonesia's economic sovereignty. Recently, Indonesia had used security reviews to achieve desinitization, focusing primarily on downstream nickel chains and the extension of the Belt and Road Initiative. This move has sparked significant international attention. On July 26, the Indonesian presidential office officially announced the suspension of approvals for 127 major Chinese infrastructure projects, including the expansion of nickel industrial parks, the Sulawesi nickel mining project, the Tanjung Perak automated port, Bantam Industrial Park, and the CAEDC chemical plant in Banten province. These projects, largely led by Chinese companies like Xinshan Holding, Delong Group, and Huayo Cobalt, are worth billions of dollars. Following the announcement, several ongoing collaborative projects came to a standstill. China is the largest beneficiary of downstream nickel processing in Indonesia, and these projects support the supply chain for electric vehicle batteries, involving companies like CATL and BYD. The suspension of these projects will lead to higher nickel raw material costs for China, impair asset values for Chinese companies, delays in the supply chain, and hindered exports. At the same time, Indonesia is strengthening its regulation of strategic materials like rare earths and nickel. In August 2025, the Mineral Industry Agency, MIA, was established to oversee mining activities. The agency has intensified environmental, labor, and community conflict reviews for operating projects, causing several Chinese-owned nickel plants, such as those in Morowali Industrial Park, to experience multiple partial shutdowns. Analysts point out that this seemingly sudden policy shifts hides deeper strategic intentions. The new government under Prabowo Subianto has clearly given this issue careful consideration, and its actions can be summed up in three core objectives. The first is control over key mineral resources. The suspension of Chinese nickel processing plant construction aims to redistribute industry chain benefits, limit foreign investment in high value-added sectors, and create more space for domestic companies to grow. The second is the use of national security as the primary justification for policy adjustments. Regulatory agencies are not only conducting comprehensive reviews of mining, information technology, and other strategic industries, but also extending these reviews to foreign-invested projects that have already been operational, showing a clear tendency towards retroactive regulation. Third, while suspending Chinese partnerships, the Indonesian government has also made a bold announcement that its sovereign wealth fund will collaborate with the United States on rare metals industries, signaling a clear strategic message to Washington. The much-discussed Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway, a flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative, has also been included in the freeze list by the Indonesian government. Despite opening in October 2021, the project has been plagued by continuous losses, deeply entangled in a financial crisis. In a parliamentary hearing, Bobby Rasyadin, CEO of the Indonesian state-owned railway operator and the largest shareholder of the consortium behind the project, openly referred to it as a ticking time bomb. Facing increasing financial pressure, on October 8th, Indonesia began discussions with China on the debt restructuring of the high-speed railway operating company. Focusing on the repayment structure and default risks, Finance Minister Purbaya Yudi Sadewa has ruled out the possibility of using national funds to directly rescue the project. Currently, the newly established Sovereign Wealth Fund, Danantara, is negotiating with Beijing to find a solution. Eko Listianto, Deputy Director of Economic and Financial Development, pointed out that the project has been questioned since its planning stage, with concerns such as the necessity of building high-speed rail between two cities so close to each other. The Jakarta Globe reported that Indonesia borrowed $4.55 billion from China Development Bank, with annual interest payments reaching up to $120 million, placing heavy financial pressure on the country. The 142-kilometer-long high-speed rail project saw its investment grow from an initial $6 billion to $7.3 billion, with its debt scale reaching $7.3 billion, roughly matching the current total investment amount. According to the 2024 financial report released by the Indonesian State Railway Company, the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway recorded an operating loss of $250 million in that year. By the first half of 2025, this number continued to expand, with an additional loss of $96 million. Since the project began operation, the cumulative operating loss has exceeded $350 million. The project's losses and high debt have put immense pressure on Indonesia's government finances. The growing deficit has led to widespread skepticism about the investment's effectiveness, with many seeing it as a failed economic attempt. Who's to blame for this high-speed rail crisis? Currently, China and Indonesia are trading accusations. Indonesia claims that Chinese companies pushed a high-risk project, leading to cost overruns. China counters that Indonesia's planning flaws and inefficient operations are to blame. The issue is that although the railway is operating, ridership has not met expectations. After 2 years of operation, the total passenger flow for the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway is still less than 12 million. Data from Indonesia's Statistics Bureau shows that over 6 million tickets were sold last year, 80% less than the annual target of 31 million. From January to October of this year, the trains facilitated over 5.1 million passenger trips, which is still far below the original expectations. Moreover, the lagging development of related projects has led to a situation where there is a road but no industry, and profitability remains distant. In 2024, the total revenue from ticket sales for the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail, along with income from station shops, advertisements, and other operations, amounted to $130 million. However, just the interest payments on the loans are nearly equivalent to this amount. In addition, the railway still faces an annual operating cost of $160 million for over 1,000 employees, electricity expenses, daily maintenance supplies, and security and cleaning services at the stations. The project has effectively become a financial black hole, with no clear way to repay the principal. Currently, the high-speed trains run every 30 minutes, with the cheapest one-way ticket priced at 250,000 Indonesian rupiah, about $15. This is more than 5 times the price of a regular train ticket in Indonesia. The fare is also 30 to 100% higher than in China, leaving very limited potential for revenue growth. Indonesia's hope is to negotiate a lower interest rate or extend the repayment period, possibly postponing payments for a few more years, hoping that the economy will improve and the number of passengers will rise. However, even if a debt restructuring is successful, Indonesia's ability to repay remains uncertain. As for whether the Jakarta-Bandung Railway is a success or failure, that decision lies with the Indonesian people. On social media, Indonesian users have said, "Why take the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway? It's cheaper and faster to take a commuter train and then a motorcycle. Long lines and having to change tickets. KAI access is much more convenient." Other users have also complained about the troublesome security checks that waste time. Changing tickets requires entering a 16-digit ID number and PIN, which takes 30 minutes. Scanning a QR code for KAI only takes 3 minutes. The Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway has imported all of China's domestic mistakes, and failure seems inevitable. Mistake 1. Building a new high-speed railway station separate from the existing railway station. The Chinese Railway Department only manages intercity transport, not urban transport, and this flaw was brought to Indonesia. Jakarta's main station, Gambir Station, serves as the hub for intercity trains and 3 commuter lines, allowing passengers to travel to various towns in the Jakarta metropolitan area. However, the Chinese high-speed rail team decided to build a new high-speed rail station at Halim Station, which is very inconvenient to reach from downtown Jakarta. Mistake 2. Halim Station is close to Jakarta's light rail system, but like in China, it's not easy to transfer between the high-speed rail and the light rail. It takes about 10 minutes to walk, which is quite a difference compared to Japan, where passengers can easily transfer between JR trains, high-speed trains, and subways with just a simple change of tracks. Mistake 3. Chinese high-speed rail stations are often criticized for being less user-friendly, and this issue has carried over to the Jakarta-Bandung Railway. Unlike Indonesia's regular trains, which don't require security checks, the high-speed rail in China and Indonesia adopted the Chinese-style security checks, adding another time-consuming step. The ticket exchange process is also inconvenient, as passengers must manually enter their full name and PIN and their ID number after purchasing tickets online. This is much more time-consuming compared to KAI's QR code scanning system, and Indonesians often have long ID numbers and long names in PIN. Many people argue that while the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway claims to reduce the commuting time from 3.5 hours to about 40 minutes, this is misleading. People need to factor in the time spent transferring between trains, waiting in line for security checks, and other delays. The actual total commute time could end up being close to 2 hours. The difficulties faced by the Indonesian high-speed rail project have once again raised concerns about the sustainability of the Belt and Road Initiative. On June 1st, the South China Morning Post reported that Muhammad Zulfikar Rahmat from the Jakarta Center for Economic and Legal Studies pointed out that China's investments have raised concerns about the debt sustainability of the project and the country's sovereignty. He also mentioned criticism of the lack of transparency in the Belt and Road Initiative, along with the lack of transparency in environmental assessments. He suggested that the Indonesian government should consider diversifying its investment partners for the expansion of the Jakarta-Bandung Railway and ensure that agreements with foreign entities are balanced and protect national interests. Chinese state media, in promoting the Belt and Road projects, often boast that Chinese state-owned enterprises have advanced technology, rich project experience, and meet the standards of the host countries. These projects are portrayed as century projects benefiting humanity. However, the reality has shown that these projects are often hidden disasters for the participating countries. Chinese companies, which have produced a large number of substandard projects domestically, have been exporting them as part of the Belt and Road Initiative in recent years. For example, in December 2022, a derailment occurred on the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway, which was in trial operation. The incident resulted in 2 deaths and 4 injuries, all of whom were Chinese workers. The company responsible for building the railway is Indonesia-China High-Speed Railway Company. An Indonesian member of parliament from the Fifth Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure stated that the crash proved that China's high-speed rail projects do not meet safety and quality standards. The Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013 by the Chinese government, provided financing for large infrastructure projects in Asia, Africa, and Latin America through state-backed loans, making China the world's largest bilateral creditor. In the first decade of the BRI, about 80% of China's loans went to countries that were either already in default or close to default. As these debts mature, repayment pressures are straining the public finances of these countries, forcing them to surrender key natural and strategic resources. This situation is referred to internationally as the Belt and Road Trap. A typical example is Sri Lanka, which, burdened with massive debts from BRI projects, was forced to hand over control of its Hambantota port to China Merchants Port, turning the port into a strategic foothold for China's military in the Indian Ocean. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a central BRI project, has failed to deliver the expected economic growth for Pakistan. Instead, it has left the Pakistani government with enormous debt to China, which it is struggling to repay. An earlier report by the Australian think tank Lowy Institute noted that by 2025, developing countries will owe China a total of $35 billion, with 75 of these countries having very fragile economies and almost no ability to repay their debts.